Okay, we'll start the webinar right now. So, all the participants, thank you for coming. So, this is the HPVC tutoring webinar specifically for rules. So, I'll just tell you something about the software and then we can start the webinar. So, everybody, you can see that there are two buttons in front of you. One is a call button and one is the video button. You can use the video button if you want to show your video and it is not required, but if you want you can do it. And there is the call button, that is if you want to speak, but that will only be during the Q&A session. So for now I have muted all of you. There is a chat button, so you can click it and so there is this chat button where you can post your messages if you have any problems viewing the webinar. So I'll just wait for 2 minutes for everybody to join and then we'll start it. Okay, hello everyone. So I'll first introduce you all to the presenters. First one is me. I am the communication directors for HPVC committee. I'll be doing the general introductions. Then there is Aaron. Aaron is the head judge for Asia Pacific competition. And there is Chris, who is the chief global judge for HPVC. So Aaron will be covering the introduction to rules part and Chris will be covering the changes in rules part. This is the timeline for the webinar. So we'll start the introduction to rules at 1:10 Eastern time, and then it will be for 10 minutes, and then we'll start the changes in rules at 1:20, and we'll have the Q&A session at 1:40. So for Q&A session, I'll be starting the Q&A mode, so everybody will be lined up for it. So we'll just wait till 1:10 and then we can start the session, introduction to rules session. Anybody having any problem in hearing me? Okay, that's good. The rules are common for the competitions this time. There's just one little change in the Asia Pacific rules. So there's not a big problem. I request everyone to mute their mics. Aaron, I am transferring the control to you. We'll start in 1 minute.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to get started here. I hope everybody can hear me and see this presentation. Karan, can you hear me? Karan, can you hear me?
I had you when you just started talking, Aaron, but now I don't hear you anymore.
Okay, I saw some messages pop up that somebody couldn't hear me, so I kind of stopped to...
Oh, no, it's perfect. Go ahead.
Okay.
No, it's, yes,
Excellent.
Aaron, we can hear you. You can start.
Okay, great. So thanks everybody for joining. I'm going to try to give a quick overview of the rules and hit some basics to make sure that we all have the same expectations heading into the event, and try to help you be most successful. What we talk about here will be just to highlight and clarify some parts of the rules. We're not changing rules here, not superseding rules. So if there's anything that comes into question, we'll look back to the written rules as the kind of final supreme rule there. Overall, I can't stress this enough over the years. Everybody who's participating in the competition should read the rules and be very familiar with them. I would say make sure you know what is in the rules. For example, what the RPS means and how it's supposed to be tested, and also know what's not in the rules. For example, there's not a requirement that you have a recumbent position. I think familiarity with the rules will make the event go smoother and help everybody's experience and competitiveness. And before we get too much into the events, I want to remind everybody that safety is one of our biggest concerns in the event, and something we always need to think about. Right now, that's in the design and building and traveling phase, but also in all phases of the event. And you think about that even in between our events, and even if you're not actually riding the vehicle, make sure you're paying attention to what's going on around you. We'll try to remind many times of that on site, but I just want to start planting that idea now. Now for the design report, this is going to be very incomplete for design report rules. Again, there's more in the written rules. I just want to point out, for those of you who have not submitted your reports yet, we have a 26-page limit, so keep that in mind. And almost every report does follow the report template. That helps a lot with report organization and scoring. So keep that up. And I want to see that you're showing us that you know how to do the work that we're really asking for. This isn't just a homework assignment to slap something together and submit it, but we want to know that you read the rules and understand what is really expected and put a thorough effort into that. For example, just copying in some FEA screenshots does not equal a complete analysis, and usually does not score all that high. And this is obvious, but worth reiterating: do not plagiarize, penalize, and do not score sections of reports that have been plagiarized. That last part has come to surprise some people during competitions, but just for the most part, everybody's doing great work. Keep it up, and we won't have to think about that. And a quick note on differences for Asia Pacific. There is no innovation event in Asia Pacific this year. That's to let us focus on the core design work with the newer competition. And we'll build that up and look to add innovation back in the future. So I'm actually not going to talk too much about that unless somebody has some specific questions later on. And design presentations will be a little bit different this year. I think Chris will talk more about this in a few minutes. We're going to do those with a static vehicle display instead of in a presentation hall. And an important reminder, this is an update presentation only. Basically, that means if it's already in your report, we've already read it and scored it, and you're working toward the same design scoring, combination of report and presentation. So it's not to your advantage to reiterate things that are already in the report. Your best chance at improving your design score is to focus on what you've done since you submitted the design report. I know those are due a little bit early, so you may not finish all of your testing. That's the purpose of the update presentation, is to let you test in that last month or so and then present that information to us. And straight quote from the rules here: only information regarding the testing and safety of the vehicle will be scored in the presentation. There's more information on that presentation and the rules, of course, that's centered around page 23. And a couple notes on safety rules. And Chris will come back to this in a minute. The basic stability, turning, and braking tests will be presented in video format about a week before the competition. And we'll also confirm these on site, and general safety inspection for things like sharp edges and dangers to the rider and dangers to people outside of the vehicle as well. That essentially is same as the past. The only addition is that video, which serves two purposes. One of them is sorry, I'm getting my own voice fed back here. One of the purposes there is riding vehicles early, which is good for competitors, and also it helps us to know that all vehicles are ready to go before we get to the event. And also want to reiterate what we call RPS is rollover protection system, not simply a roll bar. So make sure that you have an appropriate seat and seat mounting and safety harness and abrasion protection. Think about this as a complete crash protection system for your rider, not just a roll bar that was in the rules. And in very limited cases, exemptions can be requested, only in case that it's very convincing that removing the roll bar or safety harness enhances safety. I mention that now just to make sure that nobody's surprised if they see another vehicle without one of these features. It's quite possible that it's been carefully considered and exempted. And moving on to the dynamic events, in the speed event, either drag or sprint, depending on the competition, there will be both a male and female category, so be ready with a rider of each gender. And for drag race, that will be like championship bracket style. So have a plan to quickly reset your vehicle. Don't be surprised when you get to the competition that you have to do the drag race and then come back quickly. It helps the event flow better and work with our limited road closure times and get everybody a fair chance to compete. You also may want to plan on rotating riders flow to compete, especially towards the end of the bracket. You may cycle back through fairly quickly. And for the endurance event, again, ideally you would have riders of both. There's a penalty, lap penalty assessed if you don't have riders of both genders. So just plan on that and you won't have to worry about it. There's no exact minimum numbers of riders, but there is based on the maximum distance that each rider can go. So I would plan for 5 riders ready to go at the endurance event. And each team should be ready to provide a lap counter to double check and write down who was riding and how many laps. And there are, of course, obstacles. We don't have time to cover all these. They're written in the rules, and they'll be posted with course maps, so you can see what's coming up on your course and where. I recommend getting familiar with those from the rules and also laying them out and testing your vehicle as soon as you can, as early in your build and test phase. And just a quick note about conduct. In general, almost everybody at the competition behaves excellently, and we always have a good time. So won't spend too much time on that, but if there's any doubt, review the rules and get an idea of what's expected. And you can also check out the penalties for a quick summary of some things not to do. And a couple extras here. We already talk briefly about the safety exemption. So I'll cover protests real quickly. We want to run a fair and straightforward competition for everybody, and for the most part, everything goes well. Every once in a while, there are some issues that need to be reported and we need to work through. In case you find something like that, let us know immediately if there's a problem. Certainly within 15 minutes of the event results or as soon as it happens during the event. And let us know and then work on the written protest form that's in the appendix of the rules. We should have some printed on site, or you can bring one if you're worried that you might need it. Most important there is to stay calm and professional in those and report those factually and work with us. Every once in a while people get kind of heated and kind of attack the judges on those, which does not help anybody have a smoother, fairer competition. So keep that in mind. Be ready for it if anything shows up, and we'll work through it. And now we're ready to move on to some rule changes for 2018 with Chris.
Sounds good. Awesome job, Aaron. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. I need to figure out how to share my screen. Karen, can you, is there a way to give me access to do that? It looks like the option is gone for me. Let's see if we can figure this out. In the interim, I might have you advance my slides. Oh, no, I got it. We're all good here. Okay, we should have it in a second, maybe. Can you guys see my screen? Aaron? Karen? Yes, no, maybe.
Yeah, everybody can see your screen, and you're quite audible.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Okay, sounds good. So let's get started. So we're going to go over some of the rule changes. What we're going to try to do is cover things that have changed specifically from last year. And so I know a lot of you might be new competitors, so that'll be great. You'll get a lot of interesting information on things that, you know, are everything's new to you, but this should be extra helpful because, you know, some more discussion is always good for something that's new. But for people that are returning, this is specifically written for you. So these are things that are changed since last year. Some significant, some fairly minor. I'm going to try to go through as many of the general details as possible. Won't be able to hit on every fine detail, but I think we're going to cover a lot of good stuff here. So at the least, it'll be a good overview. Look to the written rules for final say on all these topics, but we'll hopefully cover some good details here. So some high-level changes. This is really what we're going to talk through in the next couple of minutes. First, we're going to talk through the videos for safety testing and the innovation event. The innovation's only in the U.S. We'll talk about how we're moving the RPS performance, and safety from the report to the presentation. And then we're going to talk through how we're going to provide you guys with some feedback, some formal feedback, which has been requested for years now. So we're finally getting a pretty good formal method in place for that. And then most of the changes fall into the other change category. So we'll talk through just a whole laundry list of other changes. And do keep in mind, when you go and download the review, pardon me, when you go download the rules from the HPV page, you'll see that there is a revision list. If you were to download that, it's literally kind of a cheat sheet to what I'm about to talk about. So definitely keep an eye on that revision list. It's very helpful tracking what's happened in the last couple of years. And the general one for North America goes back a few years, so it's very interesting to see how the competition's evolved. So the video presentation's new this year. So we have two different video presentations. First, I'll talk about the performance safety tests. So at the event, you'll be doing a performance safety challenge where you're going to be doing your braking test, your turning radius test, and your slow speed stability test. This will still be at the competition. It's totally at the competition. I'm not going to say it's not at the competition because that would be incorrect. It is going to happen at the competition. However, we're asking you to do it again early. it behooves every team to do their performance safety tests before they get to the competition so they know they'll be able to compete. And so we're trying to help you do that, as well as to help you find opportunities to improve. So yes, you'll be making a short video, which is a 2-minute video, showing passing the braking test, the turning test, and the stability test. So you can decide however you want to make that video, how you want to show that. You can just do a crude setup where you set up a quick course, put some cones out, measure things where you can. I understand most teams don't have a speed gun, so just estimate or use a speedometer on the vehicle, or even like a GPS on a cell phone can work okay. Just to do the test kind of crudely to make sure that you can do it, or you're very close to achieving success on the tests. If you can't, you'll be asked to show how you can improve and modify the vehicle to pass during the competition. But you must submit the video. Even if you don't pass, that's okay. Just talk about how you're going to improve at the competition, how you're going to pass at the competition. We'll also be doing an innovation video. So the safety video is due 1 week before the event, the innovation video 2 weeks before the event. And again, this is only U.S. competitions. And what we're going to do here is this will be in place of the innovation presentation in person. So there'll be no more innovation presentation. After this video is submitted, actually all of the innovation score would be effectively completed, because it's going to be the report and then the video following. So 2 weeks before the event, the video. So what we're going to be doing is showcasing your final fully functional innovation. And we're implementing this primarily because teams often have struggled with showing their innovation fully functioning. Many teams would comment that, oh, it was working just last night, but it's not working now. And we understand by nature innovations are, they're pushing the envelope. They're difficult. They're not reliable. And we don't expect them to work 100% of the time, all the time. And so we felt like the fairest way to do this would be to have teams, to give teams a window to pick when their innovation was working in its best state, and then create their video at that point. So yeah, make your innovation video, submit it 2 weeks before the event. We want to see that final innovation working as it's intended, in its best form. You can decide how you want to present the results and show the data. It's totally up to you. But one thing that has to be clear is it has to be completely unobstructed and an unedited video showing the exact performance of the innovation. So what are we getting at here? No video editing. Please don't try to fake your innovation. That would fall under all sorts of unsportsmanlike and plagiarism types of issues, and that would be very bad for you. So please don't do that. Okay, I think that covers that pretty well. Now we're going to move on to the design presentation. So unlike in the past where we've had a formal presentation in an auditorium, we're going to be doing a more informal presentation like we've done a couple of years ago. So for design, we're going to be moving the performance testing, the RPS testing, and the safety sections. They're going to be removed from the report. So as Aaron mentioned, the report length is now 26 pages, if I'm not mistaken, because we're taking out these sections and we're going to be presenting them during the presentation. So I don't know how I can stress this enough, but do not put RPS testing, performance testing, or safety sections into the report. Look at the report outline. Put only what it includes. Do not put these. And then when you're giving your presentation, focus on performance testing, RPS testing, and safety. Do not include other information. It's not going to be scored. It will not help you. And just as a reminder to make sure we're all on the same page, it's written in the report, but performance testing is meant to benchmark your vehicle against what you thought was going to happen. And it can include ways to improve your vehicle as well before the event. But it's really focusing on your final vehicle, or at least like a final geometry, like a final prototype of your vehicle. So the presentation should focus on work you've done since submitting the report. So this should be very recent. This gets you up to date to fill in things you haven't been able to put into the report itself. And that would include, assuming that would include the final vehicle. And one thing that's really nice is because it's done in more of an informal, it'll be done during static judging, you'll have the vehicle right there to speak to. So the judges will kind of crowd around, and you can speak to the vehicle that's physically in front of you, which is really nice. But we encourage to bring other visuals. You'll absolutely need to bring test data with you, specifically for the performance testing and RPS testing. You're still required to collect that data, collect your error on those data measurements, and then present those. And so you can't really present those by talking or pointing to your vehicle. So please bring your data. Now, it could be in a format like in a presentation deck, and you could bring a laptop to show that, or a small projector, a portable projector and screen. And those are really fancy. They work awesome. But, you know, posters work just as well. So totally feel free to print it out on posters and bring some posters along to talk to. That's a fine way to show your data. But we definitely want to see all the stuff you'd normally present in the report. So your test setup, the data collected, and, you know, your results and conclusions. And I think I'm missing one. So definitely read the rules and make sure you include all the information. You're still expected to present all the information, and you'll be scored on all the information. The presentation will be 6 minutes, so you'll have to decide how you want to break that 6 minutes up and what you're going to focus on talking to. But the 6 minutes is yours, and we'll follow with 3 minutes of questions and answers from the judges. And I always stress this, but just throw this out there again. During that 3 minutes, the judges are going to focus on asking you questions to get you points. So what you're going to want to do is try to listen to the judge and give them the best response you can, succinctly. A judge will ask something like, how did you fixture the RPS? And what they're asking is, like Aaron mentioned, it's the whole system. So what they're asking is, did you fix it at the seatbelt points? And so you'd want to respond with something like, yes, we fixed it here at the seatbelt points, like you could see in this image, and we provided the load here, which we felt like mirrored the real world situation of a crash where it's inverted. And that's all you really need to say. The judges will ask if they're trying for more information, but they're really trying to help you in those 3 minutes to maximize your score. So just a quick little tip there. And maybe it goes without saying, but these presentations will be scored as part of the design event. So your design score gets bolstered and finalized during these presentations. So when the judges walk away, your score is effectively done for the design event. Okay. We have a new section, so we're switching gears here a little bit. We have a new section. It has been requested in the past many times that we can add team feedback. So this would be information on how teams can improve their scores for next year, or what they could have done better for this year, just for their own edification. And so we're adding a new section. This is entirely on the judge's part. I can't say this enough, but there's no action required on the teams. So you do not need to do anything. The 70 or whatever, 50 to 70 pages of rules that we have, we ask the teams to do a lot of things, but we're not asking you to do anything here. Just go to the events, compete like you normally would, and we're going to try to provide you the best feedback we can. We'll specifically provide feedback on the design and innovation events. We think the racing is fairly self-explanatory. These are the components that are the most objectively scored with the metrics, you know, the rules and score sheets. So we felt like that would be the most appropriate thing to give feedback on. And we're specifically going to be focusing on improving scores. So we'll try to give you actionable, constructive feedback. Like, if you do this, this, and this better next year, you will see a better score. So it's an opportunity for teams to compete better, but also to understand where they're kind of lacking beyond just getting a final score. There are 2 different methods in which feedback will be provided. It's to be determined at each specific event, depending on how feasible it is and how the timelines look. The first is pretty straightforward. It's just written feedback. So the judges will all compile their information. The chief judge likely will, or the head judge likely will collect it all, compile it into one standard document, and then submit it to the team captains after the competition. The other method, if time allows and it's feasible at the event, the judges will break up, collect their feedback, and then share it. And then each team will have a 10-minute review meeting with one of the judges, one of the multiple judges. And so what they'll do is they'll review the feedback the judges have collected. And what's really nice about this is it gives an opportunity for questions and answers. So the team can, you know, ask why these things came up or why our score came out this way, and hopefully that can start a nice dialogue. However, what will not be acceptable is we will not by any means change scores based on this dialogue. So if there is a desire, if they feel like something is incorrect, something may have been overlooked, you would file a normal protest after you see the preliminary design scores, and then we can look at that and make sure that things are correct. However, this feedback session would not be for updating scores by any means. It would just be constructive feedback for the following year. And so those are the main three sections, the biggest changes, I would say the most consequential changes. However, there's a whole plethora of other changes that are coming out for next year, and I wanted to highlight those just quickly. So I think I'm over time as well, but we'll go over these quickly. So a couple of the other changes, and these don't really fall into any specific category, but for safety, we're requiring fully enclosed shoes. We used to require closed-toe shoes, but we're going to expand that a little bit. So fully enclosed, your entire foot needs to be covered. We have redefined the penalty system. I think Aaron mentioned this, but I'll just reiterate. We've moved all the penalties to one section to try to simplify things a little bit. And so we've updated some of the penalty requirements, so the penalties might be a little different than they were in the past. We've consolidated them, so it's a little bit easier to assess them. And we've added penalties for videos, because obviously videos didn't exist in the past. So definitely check out that penalty section and see what's written there. I hope it's more clear than previous years. We've removed the presentation sections. Specifically, what I mean by that, and that might be a little misnomer there, is we've changed the presentation from the formal presentation in auditorium to the informal during the static display, as well as the videos. So it's changed a little bit. And we removed the section in the report that outlined that. So it's not like the presentations are gone. Don't think that I could have reworded that a little better. It's just that they're broken up and they're changed. We have totally eliminated the product lifecycle analysis. We felt like it wasn't as beneficial to the students as we'd hoped when we introduced it a couple years ago, so it's been eliminated, and those points have been moved to the cost analysis and to discretionary points. So you will not have to do a product lifecycle analysis again. However, let's say you wanted to. You're totally allowed to under the other analysis section. So feel free to do a product analysis section, product life cycle analysis section, if you so choose to, as an additional analysis. Drag racing options, we're moving to the races now. We're going to include the potential for a head-to-head rally track option for those of you who competed at US West last year. If you remember correctly, they did a rally track, so there's two completely separate. The only image in my presentation, so enjoy this visual here on the right, is what a head-to-head rally track might look like. Now, this would technically not meet our requirements because the turns are not the same, but I think this visual helps a little bit. So what you have is two tracks completely separate, and they would be mirrors of each other, so they'd be identical. Both teams would start at the same time. They'd have to make opposite turns, so while the one team is taking a right turn, the other team is taking a left turn. They follow the track, and then they finish next to each other head-to-head, but not on the same course. They're totally separate courses. So this might happen depending on the venue and how feasible it is, and the tracks will be identical. This image is a little misleading, but I just wanted to showcase this because it's kind of unique. So this is an option for the drag, but is not necessarily going to be selected. The typical drag course where both teams are on the same course is still valid. The drag race, we've added a 10-minute rest. So we've discussed this in the past. It's been a little informal, but we wanted to get it in writing this year. When you're competing in the drag race, especially in the later heats, so when we're almost to the championship, when we're in the quarter and semifinal rounds, we tend to have the same vehicles racing over and over and over again, depending on how the heats line up. And so we're adding as a written 10-minute resting period. So if you're ideally, you probably have multiple riders and you're switching out riders, so you have fresh legs, as we call it. But if your riders are tired and you don't have another rider to switch to or you choose not to, you'll get up to 10 minutes from the completion of the previous heat to before the new heat starts of rest. So you can literally just sit your rider at the start line for 10 minutes to rest up a little bit. So for the endurance, we've changed a couple of things. In the past, we've had an option, and I don't actually know if this was in every rulebook, so I don't recall which events this was included in, but in the past, we've had an option to hold single-gender teams at the start line for 15 minutes. So if you don't have a race, a driver of a second gender competing, you would be held for 15 minutes and then start 15 minutes after the race team starts, but you wouldn't be penalized for any of those missing laps. That has been eliminated for simplicity's sake. So all teams will start the race at the same time now. There's no holding of teams. But if a team does not have multiple gender riders, they will just be assessed the normal lap penalties. So basically they have to complete laps for missing laps. And this is just a simplification to not hold teams. For the endurance, we're also switching the speed bump. So the maximum height has been reduced to 5 centimeters. I actually don't recall offhand what it was beforehand, but yeah, it was a little it was higher than that. We felt like it was maybe a little too high, so we're reducing that. In the endurance, there is a slalom obstacle. It's an interesting obstacle because in many ways it shouldn't be that challenging, but it's very challenging for some teams. And we've had lots of issues in the past with slower, larger vehicles going through the slalom. Oftentimes, they kind of, I don't know how to put this elegantly, they clog up the slalom and make it hard for teams to pass. And so we've gone back and forth about no passing, okay, you can pass. And the official rule now at this time is that passing is allowed in the slalom. So if there's a team that's going too slowly, you can absolutely pass them. You'd have to cut really wide to do so, so that's totally up to your team, but you'll be allowed to pass. However, with that said, there's going to be a judge right there watching, so penalties will be strictly enforced. So if there's a concern, if it looks like you cut them off or run into the other vehicle, you're not going to have a lot of flexibility. You're going to get a penalty if you do something dangerous. So you're allowed to pass. It's explicitly allowed now. However, you need to be extremely careful when you're passing. The Endurance Lock Security Challenge, which is one of my favorite new optional challenges, it was done at East Coast last year, and we felt that there wasn't quite enough time for the teams to lock up their vehicles. A couple of teams were very close and just weren't able to do it. So teams would have 45 seconds to lock their vehicle to the bike lock or to the bike stand or pole. We've extended that now to 1 minute and 15 seconds. So they have a little more time. We think that 30 seconds will make a huge difference to teams. And we've also added a card rack to the list of optional tools that the judges can use to break the vehicles, to steal the vehicles. So not a big deal there, but it's just a new tool. And then finally, my last update, due dates. All the due dates have been updated and it's kind of been synchronized. So at the end of the rules, you'll find a list of all the due dates. Check that out for any updates or changes. Some things have been modified. Some things you might not have even noticed have been changed in the past. So definitely check that out. So with that, I conclude my update section. Those are changes from last year to this year. There are still a few others that are small, super minor, but so definitely read the rules, read the revisions, but I think that's a good update. So Aaron and Karen, if you have any updates, let me know. Otherwise, we can move on to questions and answers.
Nothing for me. I'm ready to take questions.
Okay. I'll just shift it to, I'll take the control. You both can start your mics so that you can answer them whenever someone asks you. I'll start the Q&A mode in 1 minute.
Okay.
Okay, Charlene, what is your question? Can you post it in the chat?
Sir, lock security challenge will take place at HPVC Asia Pacific or not?
Aaron, can you answer the question? Aaron, can you answer the question?
Okay, thanks for the answer.
Okay. Lewis, what's your question? Chris, can you answer it? Chris and Aaron, can you unmute your mics and can you say the answer so that it is recorded in the webinar and people can hear it when they watch the recording?
Oh, thank you. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So yeah, I totally thought I was unmuted. Okay, the question is, these rule changes, are they applied to Latin America? And so the answer is yes, absolutely. How the rules work is we generate the North America rules every year, just because that's how we've done it for the last 30 years. And then other event rules are pulled from the North America rules and then modified. So unless explicitly stated in the rules, they're probably there, because we just take the North America rules and modify them. And I think I might have mentioned this earlier in the chat, but Latin America rules are going to be based off of Asia Pacific rules, so they'd be closest to that, and they're going to be released shortly. I was just reviewing a revision of them this week, so they'll be released fairly soon, but you can start referencing Asia Pacific.
Okay. Colin, what's your question?
Aaron, okay, I can answer. Colin's first question is, for North America East, have you decided between drag and speed events? I do not have a decision from the team just yet for North America East on drag, speed, or endurance challenges. So I'm sorry to say we have not formalized those yet, but hopefully we will soon.
Colin, what's your second question?
So Colin's second question is, can the locks be internal or external? I wouldn't want the bike to be damaged. So Colin, I imagine you're talking about the bike lock security challenge. So if we were to do the security challenge again, and I believe we are, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to share that, but I think that's at least in the plan. So not formalized, but I think it's in the plan. They can be either or, but as the rules specify, the lock must have a section that can be manipulated by the judges, and ideally the further from the vehicle, the better. If it was entirely an internal lock, though, it probably wouldn't be very effective due to the fact that to break the lock, all the judges have to do is remove the vehicle from the lock security area. So they'd physically just need to pick it up and walk it out of the area. So if you do lock it to anything, yeah, the judges can access anything where the lock is touching. It's pretty explicitly written in the rules, so definitely check that out as well. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Next is Bravo. So what's your question?
Sorry, Karen, what question are we looking at now?
We are looking at Bravo's question, but he has not yet posted it.
Oh,
okay, so during that time, can you answer this question? Like, someone has asked, like, okay, he has posted. Will the teams be provided with a tent or something for pits? Bravo.
Ooh, that is a good question. The teams are generally not provided with tents at the events. At specific events, they may be provided. You need to follow up with the specific event host. So what I would do is go onto the HPVC Google group where the event questions and answers are posted and post your question there. Karen, I can see your screen, just FYI. Okay.
Okay. Next is, I don't know who this is, 97277757787. What's your question? He has joined through the mobile. Okay. Dheeraj, what's your question?
So I'm gonna answer one while they're going. The question is, in the presentation, is it mentioned not to include safety and testing in the report, but Asia-specific reports are already submitted, so what do we do now if we include them in the report? So yeah, and the question is, again, just to reiterate, what if you included the information you don't need to include? And there will be no penalty for including extra in the information. So you don't have to worry if information is included that you don't need. It's just you won't be scored for it. So it's not going to help your score. So you'll need to make sure to talk about it again during the presentation. That's very important because that's where you'll be scored. But you won't be hurt at all for including it in the report. So I hope that makes sense.
Okay. Parshav Nayak, what's your question? Parshav Nayak. Okay, I'll just look up. Chris, is there like any toolkit for the event?
Yeah, I'm not sure what toolkit means. Does anyone know what that means?
Parshav, can you please explain your question in detail? I request everyone to join the Q&A queue because like we cannot answer the questions because already there are people in the queue. So we'll answer it if you join the Q&A queue. Okay. Christina, what's your question?
Yeah, I don't see the Q&A thing you're talking about, Karen. I just see the message board, by the way.
I can see the Q&A thing, so.
Okay. So I'm gonna answer Parshav's question if that's okay with you.
Yeah, you can answer that. Yeah,
specifically, the carjacks added to list of tools. Okay, so I understand now. So that list of tools is if the judges are going to be breaking a lock for the lock security challenge. So it's one of the optional endurance challenges. It's where the judges have to steal a bike. It was a question that came up previously. That only matters if your event has selected that as one of the optional challenges, and it's one of the tools the judges will be able to use to steal that vehicle. So it's a very specific thing. The teams don't need to worry about it at all. The only way you need to worry about it is if you're designing your bike lock, you'd want a design to be, secure against that. So nothing you need to really worry about too much. It's just part of that very specific option if it's selected. And it's written in the rules under that section.
Chris, there's this question from Christina.
Sure.
She has written that I know in the rules it mentions that we aren't scored for prior work. If my team took the transmission components, pedals, chains, brakes from a previous entry, how would that affect our score? Secondly, could you provide more information on how to perform RPS testing before the competition?
Okay, so I'll answer the secondly portion first. So how to perform RPS testing, it's pretty well documented in the rules, so I'm not going to go over that right now, but read the rules on how to fixture it and how to conduct the test, If there are any additional questions after you've reread the rules, post them on the Google forum, and we'll get you a specific answer. And then regarding prior work, I know this is a little bit of a gray area. If you're taking things like pedals, chains, and brakes, those are 95% of the time purchase parts. Teams are not going to be designing those anyway, so it's not a prior work concern. Specifically, prior work concerns are if you designed a frame last year, you did the analysis on it, and then you're submitting it again this year, and you're just like copying and pasting that analysis is not valid. You need to redo your analysis, design your frame differently. But reusing purchase parts, or in that vein, any purchase parts are not a concern for prior work. You're just not going to get any design points for them anyway because you didn't design them. It's basically a rule that's saying that if you design something in the past, if you reuse it, you can't get design points for it. So I hope that makes sense, Christina.
Okay. Chris, will there be any deduction if a design report is submitted by incorrect name?
By incorrect name?
Yeah.
No, there is no standard deduction for that. If the judges don't know whose report it is, and if it's impossible for them to figure out, you won't get a score at all. However, that's pretty unlikely. So I'm going to defer to Aaron on that one. But Aaron, if you have any trouble, it looks like there's and actually, I guess I'm assuming this is for Asia Pacific. But yeah, if the judges will try to figure out whose report it is.
Okay. Colin, what's your question? Colin, do you have a question? Oh, okay. Gopi, the Asia Pacific track will be released shortly.
Okay, so I actually have an update. My apologies here, just 1 second. I was just chatting with Aaron offline. He's unable to unmute himself, so maybe Karen, if you can unmute him, that'd be awesome.
I am trying to, but it shows that he has unmuted himself.
Okay.
I cannot control his computer.
That's funny. Okay, then no worries. I'll answer. So apparently, I was not familiar with this. There is a penalty for having the wrong name on a submission. Apparently, it's a big problem in Asia Pacific, where it's a bigger problem, and so there was a specific penalty added that I was not familiar with. So my last comment on deduction for having the incorrect name is incorrect. There is a deduction. I imagine it's not very much. that would seem kind of ridiculous if it was extremely high, but there will be a deduction, and it should be explicitly written in the rules. So my apologies for that error there.
Colin, the East judges have not yet decided which to keep, speed or track. As soon as it is decided, we'll post it on the website and on the Facebook page. Okay. Niket, what's your question? Most probably we'll do it in a time of 1 week. Okay. Chris, the question for Niket is that he submitted the design report 1 minute late. So will he be penalized?
That's something that, and I assume this is okay. The head judge would be able to make that decision. So I can't answer. You'll have to talk to the head judge at the event for that.
Niket, you can post this question on the Q&A forum. Someone will answer it. Okay. Bravo, what's your question? Chris, can you answer it?
Oh, sure, Bravo, yes. What do you expect to see in the safety analysis of design presentations? So this would be, it's documented in the rules. I'm going to have to go off the cuff because I don't have my rules open in front of me. But this would be hazard analysis. So we're looking for the sharp edges, the pinch points, and design concerns. And what we want it to be specifically is that you've looked for these things and you've made a note to how to improve them. So you're not just documenting that, hey, my vehicle's safe. That's not something we want to hear. We want to hear it's safe because of these things you've thought about. So describing how you're going to mitigate those hazards. You also have to talk about, we're asking for teams to have one additional safety feature added to their vehicle. So you need to have things like the bells, headlight, horn, tail light, rear view, mirrors, etc. But we want you to have some safety features, like a crumple zone, or a way to secure the seatbelt better, or padding in some area that normally wouldn't be padded, just pushing the safety envelope. So showing off that to get your points for that additional safety feature there.
Okay. Okay. Parshav Nayak, what's your question?
So we have a question about drag race rider changes. There is no change of riders in the drag race. The drag race is usually like 300 to 500 meters in length, if I remember off the cuff. That is a single rider race where they're going as fast as possible for a minute or two. So you can change riders between heats of the race. So between races, you can change riders, but you won't be changing the rider during the race.
And the distance for the drag race will be, I guess, between 350 to 400 meters, 350 to 450 meters, but like it will be decided during the event depending on the track that has been decided by the host. So we cannot say the exact distance right now, but I think it will be posted with the course maps.
Yep, correct. Yes. Yeah, we usually work on those distances until almost when the race starts, so it's hard to have exact numbers. Like the endurance, we never know the endurance distance until the actual race. It's measured on site with GPS and track measuring equipment. We have a pretty good idea, but those things are always updated.
Okay, 972-777-5787. What's your question? Till he asks the question, Aaron, can you answer this question? Is it mandatory to have riders from both genders in Asia Pacific endurance event?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. It is not completely mandatory. It's recommended. There is a lap penalty for not having riders of both genders. So if you had all female riders, there's, I believe, 1 lap penalty for the minimum number of laps that should have been a male rider, and vice versa for a male team. So you can race with only one gender, but there's a lap penalty for missing the mixed gender.
Correct. It's very often 3 laps, but it depends on the length. If you don't have a female rider, you'll just be taking those lap penalties. And we would like it to be mandatory, but we're not going to exclude you from the competition because you don't have a female rider. You'll just be taking those lap penalties, but you still may compete.
Okay. Greg, what is your question?
There's no safety deadlines listed in the West competition deadline section. Is this part of the West competition? Yes, the safety video is part of every competition. That must be an error on our part. We will get a deadline listed for that. I believe it is.
Right now, if everybody can see my screen, I'm checking it right now.
Yep.
I think it is posted, but to be sure, I'll just check it right
now.
now.
I think it's 1 week before the event usually, but let's check. Yeah. This is fun. I like this. We can all surf together.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer a question while you're looking. Lewis asked, if my team has only 1 female rider, do we take the penalty? No. You only need 1 female or 1 mixed gender rider. So she would be competing her minimum laps, and that would be sufficient. You only need 1.
Greg, the deadline for the safety exemption video on the West will be March 16th. I'll get the website updated as soon as possible. Thank you for pointing that out. Sachin, what's your question? Okay. Brijesh, what's your question? Okay, Aaron, I think his question is that he submitted the design report by the correct name, but additionally added the captain's name to it. So, like, will he be penalized?
I'm not sure. It depends on how easy it is to find the report and figure out whose it is. Let's maybe focus on questions about things that we can still help people with, not things that have already happened.
Okay. Charlene, like you should have at least one female rider if you don't want any points deduction, but it's not mandatory to have both, like female riders. Bravo, what's your question? Yes, it will be posted on YouTube and we'll send the link to all the attendees. Waity, what's your question? Brijesh, we cannot say surely right now, but like let's focus on the questions that affects your future. What's done is done. So I think the judges will post the scores and you'll get to know if you will be penalized or not.
Yeah, I think, let me make a comment here. We're not going to answer any more questions about report names. However, we're going to be reasonable. If everyone's reports were misnamed because the program changed the capitalization or something, obviously no one's going to be penalized for that. So we'll be reasonable with our penalties. We'll assess what happened.
Okay. Waity, the lap penalty means that, like as Aaron told, if you don't have both genders rider, then like you will be penalized for one lap for the maximum number of laps by a rider. So that means the lap penalty. Like if you have done 15 laps, then and you have a lap penalty of 1 lap, then your total laps will be 14. Will count 14 as your final number. So that is like lap penalty means that.
Correct. And one thing I'd like to add is it's not 1 lap. It's the minimum number of laps. So it's usually 3.
Okay.
But it can be more or less. So it
depends on the track length.
Exactly. Depends on the track length.
Okay. Niket, what's your question?
So there's a question about what's the ratio of laps for female riders, and just to be specific, it's single gender riders. So it's female if you have a male team and male if you have a female team. But there is no ratio per se. There's just a minimum number of laps per rider. It's usually 3. It can be more or less. So, for example, if everyone has a 3 minimum lap, you would need to have at least 3 of each gender. So you can have 1 female rider with 3 laps, and then male riders with as many as you want, as long as they had 3 laps each. And then there's a maximum as well. Usually what you want to do, just strategically, is your fastest riders, you want to race them as many laps as possible. That gets you your best score. So usually you race your slowest riders less and your fastest riders more. So it's really, there's no ratio. It depends on how you decide. Also, though, if your female is, or if whoever your single gender is, female or male, is very fast, you can race them the maximum as well. There's no reason to have only do the minimum.
Okay. Parsha, what's your question?
So the question again on endurance race minimums, I think this will probably be the last one we take on this topic unless we have something new. How many riders can we use? There is no limit to how many riders you can use in the endurance race. If you have a vehicle that's 50 times faster than anyone else, you can go through a lot of riders. There's lap limits. So you have a minimum and maximum number of laps each individual rider can compete in. And so you need to have as many riders as you have laps to compete. So let's say the maximum is 10, and you complete 30 laps during the competition, you would need 3 riders. You can do more. You can have everyone do 5, and you could have 6 riders. It's totally up to you. but there's a minimum and maximum for each rider, and it's based on how fast you go through the course.
Chris, I think it is compulsory to have 4 riders, minimum 4 riders for endurance race.
That might be an Asia Pacific only rule. I'm not familiar with that rule.
Last year it was there that a team should have minimum 4 riders.
Interesting.
So, guys, you need to check out the rules. Like, it's pretty clear in the rules. Okay. Parsha's question has been answered. Okay. Colin, what's your question? What is the EFEST? Sign in date and time for it. Colin, like, you need to contact the EFEST team for that. The HPVC schedule will be posted soon. Like, the HPVC things start on the first day of EFEST. So the sign-in will most probably be one day before the event, or maybe on the morning of that event. But you need to contact the EFEST team for it. If you want, I'll send the EFEST. I think the EFEST Q&A ID with the recording of this presentation. Pranav, what's your question? Chris, it is he is asking about, like, in the other changes section it is mentioned that presentation section is removed. Could you please explain that?
Yeah. So I think I typed that a little odd. My apologies for any confusion there. You're still going to be doing the presentation. It's just in the rules last year there was a section called presentations, which explained how the innovation and design presentations worked. We have removed that section from the rules and taken that information and put it into the innovation and design sections. So there still are presentations. The innovation is technically a video now, not an in-person presentation, but there's still a design presentation. It's just literally that section of the rules was removed and changed. So my apologies for any confusion. I realized a little too late that that was not very clear.
Shalin, what's your question?
Okay, so this is a question on the head-to-head drag race or straight path. Aaron, do you know if it's been decided, or Karen, do you know if it's decided what the drag course will be?
No,
Yes, I think it's a straight path based on the roads that are available.
Okay, so there will be no head-to-head at Asia Pacific. Or head-to-head mirrored courses, mirror rally track courses.
Correct. It's head-to-head drag race, but in a straight course.
Yep, of course. It's always 2 teams. Yep.
Parsha, what's your question? You can check that out on the website if you want. I'll check it out right now for you. The ride logs are due on March 9th. You need to submit your ride logs before March 9th, and you need to submit it for all the riders that you wish that will ride the vehicles during the competition. And, like, everybody's name should be mentioned clearly, because the rider bands will be distributed depending on the names that you have given in the ride logs. Okay, there are no attendees in the Q&A queue now, so I think I'll answer directly from the chat. Okay, so there's this question. In the other changes section, it is mentioned that presentation section is removed, and now it is there. Chris, can you answer this?
Sorry, which question was this? My apologies.
Last second question. It said in other changes section, it is mentioned that the presentation section is removed.
Yep, we just discussed this a moment ago. This is the presentation section was moved to the other. Now, is this incorrect? Am I misspeaking here? Now I'm looking at the rules. Yeah, no, the presentation section was moved. It's not a section in the report anymore like it was last year. It's been moved to the actual presentation section in the design report.
Okay. Pranav, what's your question?
I see a question about a change in scoring criteria.
Yes, that's what.
There is not a change in scoring criteria.
Aaron, he's telling that analysis, safety, and testing was to be presented in the report and report video, inspection, report, and presentation respectively for Asia Pacific.
Okay, this presentation does not change what's in the written rules, and the written rules say that analysis, safety, and development testing are to be presented in the report, and what we're looking for in the update presentation is performance testing. So developmental testing is things that you do to develop your design and decide what you will build, and performance testing is qualifying the final build and comparing it to your expectations.
Yep, exactly right, Aaron. Yep, all the rest of the testing, developmental testing, is definitely still in the report. And again, if you accidentally put performance testing, RPS testing, or safety in the report, it's not going to be held against you. Just make sure to focus on that again during your presentation.
Yeah, we'll just skip over it during the report reading.
Roshik, your question that said minimum and maximum labs. So what is the maximum number of labs that one rider can attend?
Okay, so I'll just state, so the rules state the minimum number of laps is 5 kilometers or 30 minutes. So if it's a 2.5 kilometer course, that would be 2 laps or 30 minutes, whichever comes first. And the maximum distance any rider can go is 20 kilometers. So if it's a 2 kilometer course, that'd be 10 laps. So it really depends on the course for the minimum, and the time does not, of course. 30 minutes is a hard minimum limit. Or the maximum is based on purely distance. Okay, let's see if there's any more questions. Otherwise, I think we could probably start wrapping up. The questions seem to be very repetitive at this point. Any more unique questions or concerns?
Female, I don't think female rider scores more point than males.
No.
It's all the same. Okay, guys, we are wrapping up this session now. So if you guys have any question related to anything, you can post on our Q&A forum. I have just posted the link in the chat. I will also be sending this link with the presentation video. And I don't think there's any other question that needs to be answered.
Okay.
Please like our Facebook page and our community, and get joined in the community website group for getting time-to-time updates. Lastly, I would like to thank Aaron and Chris for doing this webinar. Thank you guys for doing this, and all the participants, I thank you for attending it. I'll be sending the copy of this presentation video to everyone. Thank you guys for attending. We are wrapping up the webinar now. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks much, everyone. Good luck at your competitions.